All right, ladies and gentlemen, super excited to have the one, the only Hoodie Allen on the podcast, the first guest outside of the realm of our normal interview process. Hoodie Allen, what's going on, man?
What is up, man? What do you mean? Are you trying to say that I'm not an expert gamer? Because I feel offended.
We're gonna get deep into it, but just real quick, will you hit us with like the 30-second Reader's Digest version of if someone has been living under a rock and they haven't heard what you do or what you're about? Can you let people know?
Sure thing. I am the greatest rapper of all time. That's all they need to know.
All right, so
no, I'm an independent musician, rapper, singer. I've been doing this on my own since like 2011, 2012, and I just put out a new album. And I don't know what else to say. That's kind of my story.
All right.
I guess it gets bigger than that.
Well, consider this like the best way to think of these interviews is like comic book one, but condensed in. So I want to start a little bit back in the day. So at what point in your life when you're like, hey, like I want to be a rapper, and then it's like, okay, hey, I am a rapper. So where did that start for you?
I started way before it was cool in any sort of way. I was probably like 11 or 12. I'm 31 now.
So
it was just my birthday yesterday.
Yo, happy belated birthday. For context, give us like what year was it? Like when you were like roughly.
I'm trying to do math right now. I don't know, 2005?
Okay.
Yeah, 2004, 2005. I was like in middle school writing raps, trying to record them. This is like way pre-YouTube, way pre-SoundCloud, pre-everything existing, and just doing it for my own self, not even sharing it with anyone, building, figuring out, trying to be creative. And it was definitely a long process before anybody was ever interested in the music that I was doing.
So you're like 8th grade, 9th grade when you're doing this?
Yeah, even before. Yeah, like the middle school, 7th grade, just like trying to keep it to myself. I'm like, I would say I'm normally a shy person, despite the fact that my job requires me to be on stage and perform. But so I was very shy at first. I didn't show my parents. I didn't show my friends. I just kind of did it for myself.
So when you say do it for yourself, like let's get like super granular. Like, would you get like an MP3 recorder? Like, how would you do it back? I mean, because you were talking 2005. That's like even pre Fruity Loops, right? Fruity Loops is like the editing program. Oh, I think we lost Hoodie. Hoodie, no. Yo, you there? Sit yourself down. Yo, Hoodie, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. That is totally my bad. Full disclosure, I was just at my high school friend's fantasy football draft, and I was like, I'm leaving the apartment, but I got to do this interview with my guy. Yet I know at some point I'm going to have to go in the elevator. And when I go in the elevator, there's a 50% chance that this conversation cuts out. Everyone watching, everyone listening now is going to be like, what the hell? But I had to take the risk because I couldn't be disrupting all these families. And now I can speak passionately and focused for the next half hour or however long you want to have me. And I'm just going to be out here in the streets of New York doing this interview.
Got you. Do you want to put on blast your location so someone could? No, I'm just joking. All right,
let me drop a pin real quick. Hey guys, I'm in the Upper East Side. If you see me outside, say hi.
All right, so we're 2005, and you're saying, hey, you're starting to rap and you're starting to do stuff for yourself, but so I said like that's like pre Fruity Loops. Fruity Loops is like the early like beat machine software. How did you record raps, and what was your process back in the day?
I bought a $10 microphone from Radio Shack. Okay. There was a program called Cool Edit Pro 2.0 where you could record yourself, but everyone had like those cracked versions because like I came up in like the era of Napster,
LimeWire.
LimeWire, Napster, where you would download all the top songs, you would burn them onto a CD, you would go to school, try to sell those CDs to other kids who didn't have a CD burner yet, and that was the hustle. So we're talking like the time back then where you could get any program on the internet. So everyone was saying, hey, Cool Edit Pro. You can just download this cracked version and record music. So that's what I tried to do.
Okay. So you would record your raps on that. What do you use for a beat or backtrack, or like what is it? Was it just like straight freestyle, or what were your early raps like?
I would go to soundclick.com and download free MP3 beats that people were putting up there. Or like even I think mp3.com had a bunch of free beats also. Or sometimes you would find like a popular Lil Wayne or Outkast instrumental. Probably before I even knew that it was like an Outkast instrumental, I was like, oh, this is a dope beat. It's like, yeah, obviously.
Okay. So then before that, like what sparked your interest in doing that? Were you moved by someone you listened to? Was it just inside you? Like, how did you go from like being this 8th grade, 9th grade kid to being, I'm going to go buy a mic and I'm going to start doing this?
I think it was something innate, honestly, because even when I was younger and I would come home from school and both my parents worked, so they would be like, hey, just come to our office and like, stay in the corner, like leave us alone, like we're not paying for anyone to watch you after school, sort of thing. I went back like at my the house I grew up in, and there's all these raps and all these like songs before I even understood why I would be writing songs. There's all these like lyrics and raps from when I was like 10 years old, and they're terrible, but there was no motivation. There was no like someone in my house was like musical. There was none of that. So it had to be something innate, clearly.
So who did you listen to growing up that you're like, yo, this is a little bit different. This is what I like growing up in, so 2005, like what were you listening to back then?
I was like very much into like the internet rap culture stuff. So like the stuff that was like super underground, like, relatively super underground, like Atmosphere and Living Legends, and I discovered like Mos Def and Talib Kweli, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Just like all that sort of stuff. I was very much into whatever was becoming popular in kind of like nerdy underground hip hop stuff.
So back in the day in like 05, 06, it's a different internet than it is now. How did you find that stuff? Was it just like features you saw on LimeWire, or do you remember any specific websites you went to that curated this music, or what did you do to find that?
Yeah, I don't think I've even ever said this to anybody, or at least not for a very long time, but there was this website called rapmusic.com. I'm sure it still exists, but like these big forums basically where people discussed music, people posted their own music for feedback, and like this is all pre-YouTube, right? Like no one's posting something to YouTube. I don't think YouTube existed until maybe 2008 or 9. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm sure someone will quote me and realize that that's not correct, but I wasn't using YouTube at least. And the rap forum was like how I would spend my days on there as if it was like how people spend their days on Twitch. Now it's like you spend hours looking through different threads, or how people use Reddit probably is a better comparison. But you just go through all these different threads and you discover all this new hip hop, and people are talking about this guy and this album, and you got to go back. Oh, you've heard of Miss Jackson? You got to go back and listen to Aquemini and ATLians, and it was like a huge hip hop encyclopedia for me. That was all a community, really. So my earliest music, talking I'm 13 years old, like no one's ever heard this in there. None of my fans have ever heard this ever, is stuff that I would be putting on that website and kind of getting feedback from like other random strange men who are definitely adults.
Do you have any of those like early songs anywhere floating around anywhere on the internet?
Definitely. And I'm definitely like doxing myself now, because whoever's listening is probably going to be like, oh yeah, you don't think we'll find it? We will find it. Did you have
a name pre-Hoodie Allen that you used?
Yeah, but if I tell you, that makes it way too easy, right? I can't just lobby up that information. Then we're just kidding ourselves here. That's gotta be a secret.
Would you ever consider like releasing them to show people progress in terms of where you started to now, or is that not a thing in your arena?
No, way too scared that people would hear that and be like, why were you so much better then? What happened? I was definitely doing the spiritual, lyrical sort of thing. Two interesting things. I was definitely super into the multi-syllabic rhyming, crazy, like bars. Not saying I'm not that way now, but like most people who know my music know that I definitely like to sing and do other stuff other than that. And then the second thing is my voice at that age considerably deeper.
Oh, really? I
Way,
thought you were gonna say
way
higher.
no, considerably deeper at that age as compared to now, where my voice is actually like pretty high. My old raps used to be like, yeah, like just I can't even get to that deep level. So I don't know why I went through like reverse Benjamin Button puberty, but clearly something happened.
All right, so fast forward. So okay, so this is a 13-ish-year-old Hoodie Allen. Throughout high school, like at what point do you let people know, hey, I'm doing this, versus keeping it for yourself?
I started having a couple. I was gonna name the song. I had one song that like all my friends knew about and would sing, and like I don't think they were making fun of me. I think they were like into it, like in on it. And I remember performing it at like a talent show at the school. That must have been like my freshman or sophomore year of high school. But I gotta tell you, this was still like this is pre. This is like I've been doing this for a long time. And this was kind of before. I know I get like swept up and kind of categorized in like this like college rap phase where like when my music did start to take off, like there were a lot of other artists like Asher Roth and Chitty Bang and things that people find like common interest as. But there were like 5 to 6 years before that where I was making music and like none of those people existed or had careers yet. And so it wasn't cool. Like it wasn't getting me girls. It was like, like you rap? Cool. Who do you think you are, Eminem?
So your first performance on stage in your high school, clearly, I mean, you said you're more of an introvert or you're shy. Do you remember doing that and it going really well? Were you nervous, or do you remember like being done at when you're like, yo, this is what I need to be doing? What were your feelings like before, during, and after your first performance?
No, dude, I completely don't have that memory. The only remnants of that memory I have is that there was a girl who was a year older than me who was in like one of my classes. I think her name was Alex, and I just remember like I was like, oh, I'm kind of catching feelings, but like she was like an older girl, and I just remember her saying something to me after I got off stage, like, oh, that was cool, and I was like, oh man, I am awesome. I think I did that, and that's the only memory I have of that whole event. Otherwise, it's just complete blackout.
Okay. So that's, we'll call it like early high school. That's your first performance. Where did you start kind of like, I know it's not the right term, but like start busting your chops? You're starting to kind of learn what to do. And like, what was after that? What was your next performance after that? Or what was it like the next couple of years?
I think things really kind of came about while I was in college, because you start to have like that independence and you get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and hopefully more skilled with, like putting in like your 10,000 hours. I'm sure I was at 3,000 hours at that point, and the music probably reflected it completely. But yeah, the next real step is kind of college, because you have a lot of independence, you have a lot of free time. And I would find myself, instead of constantly like, oh, let me be social and go out and party, with a lot of that free time, I was like, oh, I'm going to stay in and work on a song, or try to find somebody at the school who like makes beats. And I started because I went to school in Philly at the University of Pennsylvania. So I started taking like these day trips on the $10 Bolt bus from Philly back to New York on like the weekend to like record in the city. Like I was starting to get like serious in my head,
Mm-hmm. What kind of problems or issues did you run into the early days? So you're saying you're in college, you're going back and forth. Like, was there ever a point? Because I'm so unfamiliar with how that game is in terms of how you succeed, how you kind of make your way. Like, so you're out in college, you're making songs. We're still early internet. Like, what do you do? How do you even start to get your stuff out there to get people remotely interested?
Yeah, that's the thing. It was like, to an extent, it was like people weren't interested, except for the small. Oh, you still got me?
Yeah.
Okay. It was like the people weren't interested truly, except for like the small circle that you had networking wise around you. So like I remember my earliest like marketing hustles. One was like Facebook, and just like the day of where like you would invite people and like comment on everyone's wall and be like, hey, I just dropped this song. I know this stuff still exists, obviously, to this day. It did feel a little bit more like impactful when Facebook was the main medium, and I had all these friends who I friended the first day of school, and then all the people from high school, and you sort of relied on them to hear your stuff, and it didn't really go anywhere because these are people who are looking at you and they're like, yeah, we know you, like, all right, cool, good luck with this endeavor here. But like, because that's always the case where it's like, hey, no, those people don't really support you until strangers start supporting you, and once strangers start supporting you, then you can get some like, oh yeah, that's our guy, that's our person. So like back in the day, it was that plus MySpace. MySpace was like, I was watching all these bands, they would like add fans and like be super crazy. And I'm sorry if there's a ambulance coming. I live in New York City and it's noisy at all times.
It's all good, man.
But yeah, MySpace was like the hustle, and that was like the first way where people started listening to my music who had no like connection to me, like the Kevin Bacon game. Like we were multiple degrees away. There was no like, oh, I'm a friend of this guy from your hometown. Like, no, none of that. Like these are complete random people from around the world. So definitely MySpace in like 2008, 2009.
And do you remember that moment when you kind of figured it out? Like, hey, there's people starting to listen to my music that's not my friends and family. Like, how and when did that hit you? Was it MySpace and were people sending you messages, or how did you put that together in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, there were these programs on MySpace. I think they were probably illegal, to be honest. But where you could like sort of mass add friends. And if you're like adding friends, then people are like, oh yeah, maybe we'll add you back. And they see your music page and they're like, oh wow, yeah. So you're basically like botting or spamming in some sense to like get these people to potentially find your music. And then you're leaving. But I just had such a hustler mentality. Like this is where sort of the whole approach that I have towards fans started, which was, oh, if anybody interacts with me in any sort of way on this page, I'm going to make sure that they get like a personal message back. And one of the craziest like stories from this like MySpace day and time was, do you know who McConan is?
I do not know.
Like got the club going up on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely heard that song.
Yeah.
Okay. So that guy was probably like 16 or 17 at the time. found my MySpace. He was one of my first fans. He was literally like the biggest fan I had. When I had 200 people on Twitter, he was writing me all these tweets, follow Friday, follow Hoodie Allen, and like he would make videos supporting me. And he was just a kid in Atlanta who like hadn't even started making music yet. But I always find it crazy because when McConan blew up and like started having a career, it was like, wait, is this the same guy from 2008 who was in Atlanta, like on Homer, like how he was on house arrest and was chilling in his house, like being the biggest supporter of my music, and I had like 1,000 people following me, and it was just like he was one of them randomly.
So
you could check the Twitter receipts. This is like a real thing.
No, I believe you. So, but I want to take a step back. You said like you have like a whole approach to interacting with people, but where did that come for you? Where did that come from back in the day? Because now, like, there's a lot, you and I think we're both fans of Gary Vee, and there's that approach.
Yeah.
But to have that approach before, there's someone talking about that, where did that come from for you?
Well, I know this is something that we kind of share because we've talked about it before privately, how much our communities matter to each other, and like giving back to that community and making sure you have like individual communication with like people in it and treat them like real people. And I think that started for me. This is all like, I don't think I've said any of this stuff ever, so I'm glad I get to say it to you. But it started for me with a band called Chester French. It was like this band. They went to Harvard. They were like a duo that went to Harvard. They were the first band on Facebook ever because like they were like classmates with Mark Zuckerberg basically. And they were really cool, and they started blowing up at the time. And I remember they were so great at social media, and that's how I found them. And I remember reaching out to the lead singer over email, like sending him an email, sending him my music, and just asking him, like, I think they were coming to do an event in Philly and I wanted to meet him. I just remember him emailing me back, and really thoughtfully emailing me back, like being very nice about it. I didn't expect a reply. And it was like the moment that it clicked for me, I was like, oh, the guy's name is D.A. Wallach. I was like, D.A. Wallach wrote me back. Like, if I'm ever in his shoes, that's how I'm going to act towards everybody. Like, it was really just a simple gesture where, like, I didn't expect to get a response from a band I liked. He responded to me and treated me like I had value. And I was like, that's how you're supposed to make everyone feel. I'm going to do that.
So the way you felt from that email impacted you enough to essentially control the rest of your, you could say your career, or how you interact with people online. That, I mean,
completely. It was just a gesture. It was just like a gesture that you didn't expect that makes you go, oh, wow, you don't have to be above your fans. You can be in communication with them. And I don't know, it just changed me.
Okay. So you have that approach, and you're early on. So you're hustling online, like kind of hacking MySpace, and then you're in college. When is your first show, or when is your first performance where people come to it, whether paid or unpaid?
I mean, there were a couple of shows early on in Long Island that grew up in Long Island. So we played like a church show that really scared some parents outside, like a carnival church sort of show. And we also did just like this local place called the Crazy Donkey. I remember I opened up for this guy, Collie Buds, and I was like, oh man, I'm opening up for Collie Buds. But Collie Buds went on at midnight. I went on at 6 p.m. So we didn't exactly cross paths. But the first real show, like I was in college, I sort of finessed my way onto this lineup. I decided early on, okay, I'm going to work with the concert committee, like the committee that brings artists to the school
Yeah.
and does the hospitality for the different artists. So I ended up meeting Wale, who was like one of my favorite rappers. I now have a song with Wale, so that's just crazy. But I remember meeting him, and like, I just wanted to be connected. And I knew that if my music got a little bit more popular at the school while I was doing that, maybe they'd put me on one of the bills. So I think it was my junior year, they had Clips, like Pusha T and Malice Clips headlining. Big Sean.
Yeah.
Mike Posner.
Okay.
And myself as the first opening act on it. And this is like really early Big Sean too. Like this is like super mixtape Big Sean. For Mike Posner, he was actually blowing up, but this is before Cooler Than Me was a radio hit. This is when Cooler Than Me was just something that if you were in college, you had heard Cooler Than Me, Big Sean and Mike Posner. And I somehow finessed my way onto this bill, and I was not as popular as them in any sort of way, but it was my school. So I had like my homies come out and make it seem like I was the man. There's a video of this whole performance. It's really cringy. I look so terrible. It's so bad, but it's nice to have those things.
When you say finesse, like tell me, like executing wise, what did you do? Did you like just put yourself on the poster, or did you you talk to the head of the booking board, or what did you do?
Yeah, I had just gotten enough like influence there that they thought it was a good idea, and I'm pretty sure they paid me for the performance.
Okay.
Like I added value to this. Give me $250 or something that was like I was like, whoa.
Okay.
Crazy.
So you perform at this, and you looking back, you said, all right, hey, what maybe was my best thing, but that was like the first real paying gig that you did for like an audience.
Yeah, 100%. And it was super influential to me too, because I think about it all the time whenever I see a different opening act. Like if I play at a college and they have a local student opener, I'm so much slower to dismiss. Like I'm like, oh, don't dismiss this person, because you literally were this person. And when Big Sean and Clips saw you there's no way they saw that person and said, this person is going to have a career in music. But I do somehow. So I always try to say, you never know who's going to be next and who's going to literally commit themselves to the grind and make it happen.
So you talk about the grind. So here's your first college performance. And for all intents and purposes, you just kind of hustled your face off to get to even that point. And at that point, did you have any expectations of like meeting Big Sean, or, trying to get on with Clips or anything like that? Or you're just happy to perform? You have any interactions? Did you like give them a mixtape? Did you do anything like that?
I had interactions.
Okay.
There's a little video of Clips going like, yo, what up? this is Malice from Clips. You're with Hoodie Allen. Like, there's a little that moment where I'm just like a dorky white kid standing next to them, like, yeah, all right. But yeah, no, because at that time, honestly, except for the Clips, like these other artists on there, they were doing something that felt like it was attainable. Like they were killing it, but it was aspirational. So they were still so much very much on the come up also, and humble enough to sort of give me the time of day as well.
Cool. Okay. So after this performance, give me like a rough context. What year is that? Like 07?
I think it was the end of 2008.
Okay. End of 08.
Yeah.
Then what's the next thing that happens, or what do you do after that? Does that just inspire you more to make more songs and put stuff out there?
The biggest thing that happens next is I'm going into my senior year, and I've sort of begun to figure out my life. Kids are getting jobs. Like companies are coming on campus to recruit kids for jobs. Like senior year is just like, hey, don't mess up, get a job. By January, like you're set, you can coast for the rest of the year till graduation. And I get a job. I get a job working at Google. I know where I'm going to be. I'm set to move to California starting in August. I've got 7 months. And I know like as long as I don't really like mess up, I'm just going to graduate and I'm in a good position. And I start committing myself super hardcore in that downtime to writing music. And I write this one song with my college buddy who like lived in the dorm with me, and the song is called "You Are Not a Robot," and it samples a song from Marina and the Diamonds called "I Am Not a Robot," and it's the thing that first blows up in any real sense.
And when you say blows up, what does that mean? Like what happened and how did you know that was happening?
I didn't know that it was going to happen. It definitely felt like, oh, like this is an interesting thing. Like this might actually get people's attention. But formulaically and time-wise, we put this song out, and we were like, I was very active about reaching out to blogs. Mm-hmm. Like music blogs were something that made a huge difference back in 2009. Like if you got on certain blogs, you could be put into this thing called Hype Machine. And Hype Machine was like a blog aggregator meets like Spotify radio sort of look. And if more blogs were picking you up and people were liking your song, you then would go to the top of Hype Machine and basically be like, it's like the top of the Billboard charts for this internet music culture. So I knew that, hey, this song sounds like these artists. I'm going to reach out to every blog that has posted this, and this artist and tell them, hey, this is why I think you should post me. This song is kind of in this vein. If you like it, please check it out. And then I also reached out to every blog that had posted the original Marina and the Diamond song and said, hey, I did a remix to the Marina and the Diamond song. It's a hip hop remix. I would love for you to check it out, blah, blah, blah. And I just spent a lot of time thoughtfully writing these emails. And it worked. And I got a lot of the blog coverage. And then I went to number 1 on Hype Machine, and the song ended up breaking like 1 million plays in that first like 2 months.
Which for back then is crazy for spins online, let alone now. So then when you say thoughtfully write emails, like roughly how many emails do you think you wrote?
Like 200.
Okay.
Easily.
Okay, so essentially like I'm seeing a pattern. You find a way. First, you work your face off. Then you essentially find a hack. You take advantage of it for distribution, and then see what happens. But it doesn't matter if you hack if your music isn't good. So you just kind of you hack to put yourself in a position to be successful. And in this case, this song blows up, through your 10,000 plus hours of work and you working your face off to get it distributed through whatever means necessary. And then what happens?
Well, first off, I think that was really well worded, because if the product isn't correct, it doesn't matter how cool your marketing plan is. And you can look at that in real life. There's so many like, oh man, let's just put these 2 artists together. They're so popular, it should work. That the consumers don't always like just enjoy something just because you're packaging it a certain way. So it has to be everything. But yeah, then what happens essentially is we realize that it's working, me and my buddy RJ, and it's like, oh wow, we should make 7 more songs that sound like this, which was like taking an independent like indie sample sounding song, flipping it and turning it into like poppy hip hop basically, which is what we like to do. So we made a mixtape over those next couple months, graduating. We put out another song, it did well. We put them all together and made it a mixtape. And that mixtape didn't even come out until I had moved to California. So I graduated, I moved to California, I'm working at Google. I'm like a month into my job there. They're just training me. They're like paying, like they're paying you to just be trained at the moment. And meanwhile, like before I can even have a bed, like before I even buy a bed in San Francisco, I get a call from Republic Records and Sony ATV Publishing, and they're like, hey, we want to fly you out to New York and take a meeting with you. And like, you have to realize when I say this like robot song blew up, it's never been sold. Like it's never been on Spotify and it's never been sold. It's only been like a YouTube, SoundCloud type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh man, like let me check this out. Like it has a lot of views, but it's still like really hidden. And they fly me out there and I think, okay, my life's going to change. Like I'm just going to get like a record deal and then I'm going to leave this job. I'm going to have that like financial stability to do music and just go forth and do it. Cause I'm going to just get a deal.
We're there essentially what you're hoping for. They're going to do everything for you except make the music. They're going to do the marketing, distribution, rate, all that stuff, right? More or less that's what comes with the radio deal.
Yeah,
okay.
and I didn't even know
or
what
music.
I didn't even know what a label. Yeah, with a record label. Yeah, I didn't even know what to expect. I had no experience. I'm 21 years old, and somehow like gamed the system to that people have started to like me who aren't my friends, and now there's like interest from college fraternities to book me, like people who are like, yeah, we'd like to fly you out to Georgia Tech for like $750 and a slice of pizza, and like me and my buddy like literally show up there, and it's a mess. It's well, I'm trying to be family friendly for the channel, so it's a blank show. You know what I mean?
Like
you're
there's a speaker and a microphone, if that.
Yeah, you're standing on like an outside. I've got 7 songs of music out, and they're like, "Can you play 2 hours?" And I'm like, no, I can't play for 2 hours. I have 20 minutes of music out in the world. We'll freestyle for an hour. Good luck. So but like these were some of also the most amazing times because you're wild westing it, not knowing what's going on yet. Just like, all right, let's keep doing this.
So you fly out to New York. What's the meeting like? What happens?
It goes badly. I mean, it doesn't go badly, but it doesn't. It's not the imagined dream situation. What I'll find to learn in those like future years is that these people will say that they're interested in you and then ghost you, or it's a game. They want to be first to have you in there, and then they'll see what happens. And once you blow up bigger, they're like, we believed in you from the beginning. Remember when we flew you out here? So it becomes sort of that game. And I remember I go back.
What did they do? Was it just a waste of your time, or what were like? Did they offer you anything, or what was the? I mean, if they're flying you cross country. Like,
yeah, I don't think I got an offer. I didn't get like a record deal offer at that time. I don't even know if I was expecting to get one. I got a lawyer for the first time, and I was like, oh, the lawyer will sit in with the meetings with you, and they'll be the ones who are sort of like handling the negotiation aspect, and you just be yourself and talk about your things. But obviously, it's overwhelming because you have this guy who is the head in charge who's sitting down and meeting with you and talking about like, hey, kid, you ready to be a star? And you're like, I don't know. Maybe.
And so like crazy. But what like I guess what I'm trying to understand is that what happens at that meeting is just a face-to-face meeting and that's it. And it's like, hey, we know you're out there, we're watching you, or
that's what it is. Yeah, I mean essentially that's what it boils down to. It's like they want to be the first contact and they want to be kept in the know about what's going on next, and like that's all really good. And it's super early for me at this time anyway, but this meeting and this opportunity leads me to seeking out management and playing some of my first shows. And I had a couple more of these, like, hey, maybe you're gonna I had a different like fly out and perform for this record label sort of situation, and hopefully they'll sign you. And none of those things ever happened. So I just went back to Google. I kept working there and doing it on my own at my desk.
So, and I didn't ask you this, but if you landed a job at Google, I mean, they don't just hire everyday individuals. What did you graduate with, and what were you doing for Google?
I graduated with a finance and marketing degree from University of Pennsylvania, and I wasn't doing anything super interesting. I was working in marketing there. I wasn't doing like coding or engineering or anything like that, but it was still a pretty cool place to work. It definitely wasn't easy. I literally think I'm not lying to you. I literally think they hired me because so much of my story when I was sitting in the interview was talking about, hey, I'm doing this music career and sort of doing it myself, and these people are starting to take notice in me, and they're like, wow, that's cool. That's different than the other 100 applicants here. So it's like the same thing that ultimately draws me away from them is kind of why they hired me in the first place, I think.
Got it. While you're working there, were you able to use anything you picked up to help you market, or was it completely unrelated to what you were doing?
Yes, I actually rigged the entire Google system so that if anybody searched rap music, my link would come up to the top. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if I learned anything there in terms that was valuable to my music career. I think the biggest thing I learned was how to like burn the candle at both ends. Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
Because I would literally be working like a more than normal job because they want you there at like 8 a.m. till 6:30 or 7, and then I would go home and pursue the second job that I knew that if I didn't take advantage of those moments, the heat on it would fade, like it would evaporate.
Got it. Okay, so you're working at Google, and we'll just call it for now, like moonlighting and working your face off, building your rap career. You start to get some gigs. Like, were your first gigs like college fraternity stuff? Smaller schools, and
Yeah.
What's that progression like? And does one turn into two, turn into three, just because word gets around, or how does that grow?
It was really weird. I don't think it applies in the same way anymore, but it would be like, hey, I put out a music video. And when you put out a music video, you would then get 3 show offers that day, as if I was so like easily accessible and like not like an established person. So like the people who were my fans were also like, hi, I'm the social chair at this fraternity. We want to book you for this thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. It was so very early days that things like that, like I wasn't selling any music. I was just putting it out online for free, and I was spending money to make these videos. And like sometimes it was like, hey, you're spending all your money that you've saved up from working at Google. And I guess I'm kind of skipping a step, because there's a moment 6 months into working at Google where I start to feel that there's enough of an opportunity and there's enough of people who actually want to see me. Like I do a New York show and a Boston show and a Philly show, and they all sell out over Christmas break. And I say, like, I'm not coming back to this job. Like, I'm going to take this year and see what happens.
But
so
I got to cut you off. So like, how do you go from playing for $7.50 and a piece of pizza to having your own show? Because clearly there's a huge jump there. What did you do on your side of things to make that happen?
The weird thing is, it wasn't a huge jump. It was more so that project that I had started during my senior year of college, it comes out in the fall. It comes out in September while I'm working at Google. Like I literally called in sick to promote my mixtape for the whole day. All my coworkers knew about it, and they were like, hey man, we know that you're online. We know you're not sick. You're literally promoting this mixtape right now. So it's basically 3 months from that point in time where all my hustling, all those tricks, I ended up spending like $1,500 to advertise on that Hype Machine website, because it was the first place I had fans. So I did a whole like takeover of the advertising banner on their website, which was like, hey, it's Hoodie Allen, listen to my album for free here. And people could go, because this is a time before Spotify.
Yeah.
So people could go click on the album. It downloads with one click onto their computer, and then they drag those files into their iTunes, and then they connect their iPod and put it from the iTunes to the iPod, old people stuff. and like, I got a lot of downloads. People were downloading it. Like, it all worked. People liked the music. Like, there's still people to this day who are like, go back and make that song again 9 years later. So it was kind of like a progression where I finally had some fans in like the East Coast markets, and I could sell, cheap tickets to a show.
When someone says something like that, like, hey, go back and do this that I really liked back then, how do you process that and what do you do?
I just continue doing what is me, and like there's so much of me that's still that same person because I am that same person. So it's hard for me to compete with the nostalgia that they might have that's associated with a project. It's like the same way that like if people want to compete with like, oh, can you just be the Dan from Big Brother? And you're like, well, I am that person, but I'm also like a million other things. So I appreciate your like interest in that part of my life, and I hope that you find a way to still be interested in what I'm doing now. But I can't go back and just be that person for you because I need to be happy and fulfilled also.
So you'll actually, if someone says that, you'll tell them that message in some way, shape, or form?
No, I'll just say, hey man, screw off. No, I'll definitely, I'm definitely always really, I know it's not ever coming from like a negative place.
Yeah.
It's coming from a place that they have something that like matters to them because of where they were in their life at that time. And it's like, that's actually like kind of really cool and an honor that you're part of their life in some sort of way. And of course, as someone who makes music, and this is something that I like actually obsess over, obviously, is how do I keep those people engaged and interested in what I'm doing? And there's no easy answer to that question, but being open and being able to have that conversation with them, it's super simple. Like if that person says, hey, I really love this project, and you're like, that's awesome, thank you so much, I actually have a new one out, I'd love for you to take the time to check it out. Like they're probably going to do it,
Yeah. No,
they're probably going to give you a chance.
Especially if you take the time individually to interact with that person, much like you back in the day when you had that interaction. All right, so okay, so you take the day off to promote your mixtape and you get a lot of downloads. And then how do you go to, okay, hey, there's enough downloads for me to organize a New York show, a Boston show? And then how do you physically do that?
Yeah, it just started happening because once the college shows happened, I got an agent who was like basically a kid who was my age, also just out of college, and he was helping book these shows. And we were watching all my peers around me, and all my peers around me who were also in similar boats, they started playing shows in their hometown. And it's like, okay, we should do that too, right? Okay, well, I get off this week from work. I get to fly home to New York to be with my family. Let's just play shows. And the shows went really well. And that was that was a literal turning point for me. I feel like this podcast is going to be 4 hours long. I'm spending so much time. So I apologize to everyone listening still.
No, dude, this is perfect because this is like, so you have this show, but what does that mean for you having, I mean, you've done some college shows or, fraternity shows, but how do you begin to organize? Like who does the legwork to organize that hometown show?
The agent, myself, the fans who care are like putting up posters and stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you start to like, in some ways forget like how these things happen because you remember them so easily. Like, wow, that was so easy that just happened. You almost take it for granted when it isn't something to take for granted. Because kids always ask, like, how do you start? How do you kickstart a career in music? And it's like, man, I don't know. Just make stuff that you like because it's real. There's really no pathway. You kind of got to get lucky. So you might as well be making stuff you like and be happy doing it.
Okay.
But yeah, the organization just, it was, I don't know. It just happened, man. People started buying tickets. I was like, thank you.
But like buying tickets to where? Like your backyard, your like a venue? Do you book a venue? Like how did?
Yeah, it was Webster Hall. It was at Webster Hall.
Okay, and so you guys, all right. So you pick a venue, and then how do you know you're gonna sell it out? Like these are all questions from someone on the outside who has no clue. To be like, okay, you have a show, but like
the answer is I didn't know. I didn't know that it would sell out. There's a promoter who's the guy who buys the show. His job is to promote it out to the audience that he thinks is going to get to it. I've got my small social media channels. I've got the agent who's thinking these are the right size rooms, and you sort of just press go and you see what happens. And I honestly, it's so far in the past, I wouldn't even be able to tell you like, hey, did it sell out quickly? Did it sell out last day? Like, I don't remember. I just remember that it worked. Somehow it worked. And I turned to my parents and was like, you see, this is like real now, right? Like, cause they didn't understand that like people actually cared. And it was a very interesting moment.
Okay. So you have this successful set of shows, and then you quit Google. You're like, I'm done, and I'm gonna do this full time.
Yeah, I go back and I ask them if I can take. I ask my boss, can I take a leave of absence? And or they offer me a leave of absence, basically, where if it doesn't work out for me in the next 6 months and I want to get my job back, I can come back, no worries.
Okay.
But if it does work out, go for it. And
Okay.
I was like, okay.
So then it worked out.
The minute I started like focusing on it and completely committing myself to it, I started working on this project called Leap Year, which symbolically and like in the name, it was like my leap year. It was my year to take a leap of faith on myself, and that's why I called it that. And the minute that I started committing myself to this, it worked. The next thing I did, people liked. I made a video for it. It was successful. It was the riskiest situation I was in. It was a video called "The Chase Is On," and I literally had $10,000 to my name, and I put it in the video, and people started booking me for more shows, and that was like, cool, we can continue. Because still at this point, not selling music, it's not on iTunes. It's all YouTube. It's all just free internet stuff. Trying to build the fan, trying to build up the goodwill, and just see what you have. It's just really raw.
Okay. So at this point, you're putting all your money back into the business or back into producing more music videos, and then you take these 6 months off, and then what? So then you start booking shows, and then just keep doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I am putting out like a couple singles for this project, and then the project comes out in July of 2011. Same formula. Hey, click it, free download. Hey, all the blog outreach. Hey, now I've got 10,000 followers. I used to have 3,000. Now I've got 12,000 followers, 15,000 followers. I'm interacting with every single one of them. I'm letting every single person know how much I appreciate it. Grind, good music. And then I go and I'm able to book my first tour for this album. It's like 15 shows in the summertime of 2011, New York, Pittsburgh, Chicago. And this was like the first real tour. Like, hey, you're going to sell tickets in all these new cities.
And then, okay, so your first tour, how do you know you're ready for that? Or like, is it, you do sit down and be like, okay, there's X amount of people here and there? Or how does that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you do your first tour. How does that go?
In some cities like New York, we end up doing 1,000 people.
Okay.
In Buffalo, we sold 1 ticket.
Okay. I wasn't expecting to hear that. So when that happens, I don't mean to laugh. I just wasn't expecting to hear.
It's so sad.
Well, I thought you were gonna say like, a couple hundred, but you're like 1 ticket. So when that
a couple hundred minus the couple hundred, just a couple.
So when that what happens when that happens? I'm sorry.
You're roasting me.
No, I just didn't expect that. No, I just didn't expect that.
Well, I just wanted to highlight that because the point was, it's never a straight line or an easy path. Yeah. New York's my hometown, so that one has all the buzz of like a hometown show. But Pittsburgh has 67 tickets, and I've never played a venue before, and I don't even know what I'm walking into or what I'm supposed to expect. My agent isn't telling me whether this is good or bad. Mm-hmm. It just is happening. So I leave. I'm happy with all these things. These things are small, but I have no frame of reference for what is bigger or what is success. Like, success to me is the fact that like I'm doing this and getting paid to do this, and like I'm not at Google. But the truth is, like, looking back retrospectively, is there were like great successes, but also like moderate failures during this time.
But I mean, it didn't. Number one, it didn't stop you. I gotta ask one more thing about this Buffalo show. Did you play the Buffalo? Did you play the Buffalo show?
Yeah, we did, of course. It was at a place called Broadway Joe's, which is famous from that Goo Goo Dolls song where they go like, Broadway's dark tonight. Like, it's literally about like Broadway Joe's. So we go in there. There's one person who paid for a ticket, but it's a bar. Okay. So it's like a little stage, and then there's like a bar, and like there's like all these old guys sitting on stools at the bar, and literally as we start playing, 3 of them turn around, look at us in disgust, and walk out of the bar. So we like basically sold -2 tickets to the show.
Okay, but the good news is you get to do this for a living, and you go on with the tour. And when you finish things up, do you like sit down and hash this out and be like, okay, hey, like, does it matter? Well, I don't know the logistics of, does it matter that, I mean, it's got to matter that you don't sell out Buffalo, but for the whole tour,
No.
does it balance out somehow?
Yeah, it doesn't matter actually. It's a funny footnote. Like, it's in recorded video form as like a funny footnote. Like, we're killing it. Buffalo, no one's here. We're killing it. But my takeaway from this tour is like, any 22-year-old who like thinks they're on tour for the first time, you're just like, you're so excited about life. Like, you've got this like dirty conversion van that you're driving around the country, and like all the girls who are coming to the show and the guys, like everyone is basically your age. So like once you get off stage, you're like, let's go to the bar. Everyone come to our hotel. So there are all these very ratchet moments in time where we're literally like, we are all just figuring this out together. Like, let's go party together, which like wouldn't happen nowadays, you know? But then we're like, oh my God, this is my first show. Like, how do you act?
So okay, I get it. So you're out there and it's like, you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it. And that's the only thing that matters. I'm
talking like 15 girls piled high into a van in Toronto, going nowhere, blasting music. Just don't be like me. Be better than me if you're listening and you're an aspiring musician. But yeah, you're basically, it's trial by fire, and that's kind of the really cool part about a lot of the career stuff, is doing it all myself. You learn it from doing it.
Yeah, and you and I have talked a little bit just about doing it independently, doing it yourself. And so as you've continued to do this, so that was your first tour. How many tours have you done since then?
15. I don't know, something like that probably. Yeah.
Okay. And as you do this on the road, as you're out there grinding, at what point are you like, all right, this is what I want to be doing the rest of my life? And how do you make sure that you can continue to do that?
Well, I think that point, to answer your question in 2 ways, I think the point of figuring out that I wanted to do it my whole life came before I even had the opportunity. Yeah. It literally came from watching Kanye West Glow in the Dark tour at Madison Square Garden. I had like nosebleed seats to it. Then I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and I knew that I wanted to do what he was doing, like right then and there. Mm-hmm. So that was before it even happened for me. I was like, this is what I'm doing. But then in the sense of how do you make sure that you continue to be able to do it, especially independently, I don't know. That is the fear and determination that drives me to this day, because I act like, and I feel like it can be taken away from you at any time. And I've seen it be taken away from so many people who were my contemporaries along the years, who knows why it didn't work out for them. Maybe the music wasn't right, maybe their effort, maybe something changed in their effort or their motivations. But I got to see firsthand that just because you get successful for 1 minute, just because you have a popular song or a great 6 months, does not entitle anyone to care about you in the long term. And that's why I always keep that mentality that this can be taken away from you at any time. So you need to act like you are still the kid when you were 19 writing on MySpace.
So for you, as you're going throughout this, was there any moment, and by staying like active as you are and staying hungry, is there any moment you kind of sat back for a second, you're like, yo, I kind of made it, or I made it? Or do you remember any like landmark moments anywhere throughout your 15 tours where you're like, yo, this is like, I've actually come a really long way from the kid at home in New York with a $10 microphone and a LimeWire Napster downloaded program?
Oh yeah, I think I'm making it sound like it's not also incredibly prideful and joyful, but it is. There's so many moments like that. The first time, like chronologically, I guess we didn't totally get up to this, but yeah. if we got up to this year by year, we'd be here forever. But the next year after this whole thing, is the first time I put out a project for sale. It's called All American, and it's sort of like the project that really jumps off my career. It goes #1 on iTunes. 30,000 people buy it in the first week. I didn't know that was even possible. and like then my life has changed, because then I'm now a music artist. I charted on Billboard. Like people are writing me being like, who are you? Why are you on Billboard? Like all these sort of things that it was like we were this little secret. And by selling something and becoming like, therefore you're part of like the music industry in a more traditional sense, things change. So like that moment is a moment that will always stick out to me as like, wow, you've made it. And there have been a lot of those moments since. I feel that way anytime I play a show, like, wow, this is amazing. But I don't let that also take away the realism that like a person who's in a creative space, an artist type of space, you're only as like strong as the people who support you.
So when you talk about, especially now, things have changed so much with the internet. What are some things that you do on a daily basis, or I like to look at it like tactically, although it's not tactically in like a cold sense, but what are the things that you focus on now to continue to drive interest? And, you know, because we've been talking for a while, but I know you've been working on this latest album for a long time. Outside of making good music, what are you doing now in 2019 that's different in how you promoted, you know, in 2012 or when you first started?
The crazy thing, man. Yeah, new album out now. If you've made it 54 minutes into the podcast, ha ha ha, check it out. Yeah, the crazy thing about it, Dan, is that like so much of what I do is like the same, because I'm still that same person who's like writing back to all the tweets and writing back to all the DMs on Instagram. Like if anyone is listening to this and sends me a message, like there's a pretty darn good chance that they're going to get a reply back. Because that's sort of what I know. Like, I feel like you got to build this thing one by one, and it's like a super slow growth as a result. And I realized, like, even personally, like, I never became like some sort of like arena playing like superstar person. That maybe wasn't in the cards. But what I've been able to do, I think, is a direct, like, and being able to still be here and still have all these fans is a direct result of the fact that, like, people know I care, and if it's not responding back to everyone, it's like, for this album, I'm doing a thing where like anybody who supported it with like a digital download or buying a t-shirt or any of those things basically got entered into a contest where 5 of the fans are going to win tickets to life to any show that they want to come to. And for one fan, I'm going to fly to their home, play an acoustic show in their backyard, and hang out with them all day. And like it's like those sort of ideas that I'm like, what, like, okay, no one wants to buy music in 2019. They've got Spotify, they've got YouTube, but people do still want to support. Like Patreon exists, all these other sources exist. Like people do want to support creators and creative people that they think like bring value to their life. I always look at it like, let me bring even more value to your life. Like, let me figure out a way to show you I care. And like some of those sort of contest ideas and things like that are the scalable ways to say like, hey, I'm trying to do something like cool. And yeah, so that's kind of like an adjustment on the reply to everybody model.
Got it. And then, so you brought up monetization as an artist. Like, how do you monetize stuff in terms of like you get, is the Spotify work similar to YouTube in terms of like every player, every view, like you get monetized off that? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Concerts?
You want to know something crazy?
Yeah.
Up until 2 months ago, I never monetized a single YouTube video of mine ever.
Was that intentional or?
I'm just stupid. No, early on, when I started uploading some of these popular videos, there was a time when people getting ads wasn't normal. So like if someone got hit with an ad, they weren't able to skip through it, I don't think. And it was an excuse for them to click off the video. So I thought, I don't want to have an ad. I want to have no barriers to entry. I want them, if they want to listen to this, they shouldn't have to sit through anything. I don't want to lose that potential person. So I never put ads on my music videos or anything. Obviously, like 500 million views later, I'm stupid as hell, but like, who cares? Like that's that's just like the little stuff. The way Spotify works though is like basically 1 million plays is like $4,000.
If you get
that's like the ratio.
1 million plays?
Yeah, like 1 million streams.
That does
it's like $4,000.
Okay. That's not what I thought it was going to be.
You thought it would be higher or
yeah,
lower?
No, it has to be higher. But like 1 million plays, that's a lot of listens.
It is. That's honestly the toughest part for a lot of independent artists I know, because they don't they might get, let's say, 100,000 plays on every single song that they have on a 10-track album. So in total, if they get 100,000 plays on each song, that's 1 million plays, and that means their album's generating about $4,000. That 100,000 streams on each song, let's say it comes from like 30,000 people who listen on average like 3 times.
Yeah.
Back in the day, those 30,000 people, probably half of them would buy the album for $5, and instead of making $4,000 on the music, they were probably making $75,000 on the album. So honestly, right now, for a lot of people caught in the middle without like big catalogs, it's in some ways really tough, and they have to sort of be creative. And I think there's a super amount of ways for them to be creative. I am very fortunate that like a lot of the songs that I have sort of broken through and a little bit away to the mainstream, even if like most people don't know who I am. Like there are still songs out there that have like 50, 60, 70 million streams, but it's harder for other people, because you have to think about it like in a non-traditional way. Like, how do I make this a job?
Yeah. So Spotify clearly, I mean, it can't be the only way to make it. So, I mean, touring has got to be a big one for you. And if you don't want to talk about monetization, yeah. But I just love like learning the business end of what you're able to do.
I manage myself, so I am the business end of my stuff too, and I love talking about it, because not from like I want to tell people about money,
yeah,
but just from a way that like I think a lot of people don't realize, and they don't know certain things, and I like, if I can be someone who's telling the truth about music industry stuff, like I'll tell it,
because you're doing it also. So you do that. So your shows, merchandise, do people still buy albums on iTunes? Not as like, just not as much.
My personal experience is that people don't really buy albums on iTunes, but they will buy vinyls. They will buy CDs that are like signed. They'll buy more collectible type of things, and they'll buy things that they feel like are tangibly supporting an artist. Okay. So if you create like, hey, I'm going to do 25 special packages for this album, and you're a small artist, there are 25 people who really care about you who want that. Or maybe there's 100 people who really care about you that want it, or 1,000.
That will pay like a premium for like a special limited edition.
I think so. And that's what I try to encourage to like friends of mine who maybe aren't exactly where I'm at, but are certainly like musicians and full-time musicians, but they're looking for ways to grow. And I always tell them, like, you're always going to be putting out music to try to grow it to as many people as possible. You want as many people to stream your song, but you also need to be super, super focused on the core that you have, because like in anything, there's like 10% or no, there's like, oh my God, there's like 2% of the top 2% of people that care about you probably are the ones who like financially support you in a ridiculously uncomparable way. So I always try to think like, hey, I want to treat these people really well, because they make my job possible. Like, they don't even know it, but they make my job literally physically possible. So literally physically.
Yeah, no, I get it. And then, so you mentioned earlier about like a Patreon. Do you have any stuff like that, or it's just like
I don't.
So merchandise, streaming, touring, limited stuff. Is there anything else that like there's any other channels that you can monetize, or and like,
I mean, pretty people can monetize their Instagram.
For you, do you think about that, about monetizing too much, or do you just try and test different things, and this worked, this didn't? Or
I think I'm super conscious about it, because I think that it does play in, like, people can sense when you're doing something for money or when an artist changes in some sort of way about money. It can be pretty transparent. So I definitely think a lot about it. It's why I try to do things like the last tour that I went on was called the Hanging with Hoodie tour, and every single person who bought a ticket got a meet and greet. And most of the time nowadays, a meet and greet sort of experience is usually an add-on in price,
Yeah.
like a significant like cost increase. And I've done that. I've done that before too, but I always tell people, like, even on this tour that I'm about to go on in September, check hoodieallen.com for dates. You know, the tour that I'm about to go on, people can buy VIP and get this really like cool package, and like not just, hey, you're getting a picture, but I do tell people, like, you don't need to have money in order to meet me. I'll make sure to find a way to meet you at the show. And it's cool because I don't think that the people who buy VIP are like, hey man, what the hell? Because they are getting what they want too. And then the people who, you know, aren't like, oh, I can't spend $50 on this. It's like, don't worry, it's okay. You coming to the show means enough to me. Like I will find a way to like make your day better. So it's to me, it's been interesting because I think that if you act genuine fully in both ways, there's ways to do both if you're willing to like put in the work.
Got it. So it's like you don't put up a paywall. It's people that pay extra, they get some cool, but you don't take away from anyone else because they don't have the ability to do that.
That's like sort of one of the, I guess, like core principles
Yeah.
that I try to do, because I find that like those people who want to do VIP, those people who will like buy your album on vinyl, like they're doing it because of the personal relationship and how you make them feel and how you impact their life. It's not about a competition with other fans. They're not trying to be better than other people, I think, for the most part. They feel uniquely like connected, and I feel that way also. And it's just like, hey man, we want to support you, like we love you.
So throughout this, and because it sounds like we've talked about this, it's like grinding. Anywhere along the line, have you thought about, hey, I don't want to do this by myself anymore, I want to, you know, link up with a record company? Or is that it just didn't feel right when the opportunities came up? Or what's been your take on that?
When the opportunities have come up for that, it has never been exactly right. I probably would like define myself as someone who maybe has control freak tendencies when it comes to the music stuff. And I know that's like sort of a negative term, but I say it with a little bit of endearment because I've gotten to control like my distribution, like when I put stuff out, how I put stuff out, what does the video look like? Hey, if I want to do this and spend this money for a video, it's coming out of my pocket, but I don't have to ask anyone for approval. And I know that like all that stuff sort of goes away when, as much as there's other greater opportunities that might come with working for a label, you then are signing over your music to them. They own your music. You essentially get paid from them in advance for your records. And you're no longer running your own company. You are in some ways an employee of them, or like an independent contractor to them, except you're not independent and you can't leave. So I've always had, if there was like a right situation, I was always open to it. But I could probably talk for hours about like situations that I've seen with friends where it just didn't go right. And they thought, hey, I'll just put all my faith in this label and they're going to make it work for me. But I always say, like, the minute you remove your personal investment, like if you think anyone else is going to make you successful and you don't have to like be the one leading the way, it usually doesn't work out.
Got it. So it's for you, it's not, you give up control, but you don't necessarily, you're not steering the ship anymore. And more or less you've been successful, not more or less, you've been successful steering your own ship. And it sounds like, I mean, unless it's a perfect deal, like you're giving up a lot to make that jump. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's pretty accurate. I think something that I've learned, maybe it was said to me by someone who was smart, which is like, never make a decision based on money. You know, like if you're doing something because like you need to do it because of money, like it's usually the wrong decision. And a lot of record deal situations specifically is like, hey man, I don't want to do this, but I need to get this money in order to like do this, to do that. Like, I just need to do it. And you give up so much of the long-term value and long-term investment in yourself for the short payoff in the immediate now. And like, I've always wanted to put myself in a situation where if I make that decision, I'm not doing it out of necessity. I'm not doing it out of fear. I'm doing it because it's the right person and the right team. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of like there can be a lot of predatory behavior in the music business where people wave a large sum of money in front of someone who's never seen a large sum of money before, and it clouds the perception of what this relationship really is going to be.
Got it. No, I get it. And it sounds like, I mean, it's just so interesting that you've had this experience and that you've gone through everything. So like, out of people that are going to get fooled, you're not on the list. You know, I mean, like, I imagine you sit into a meeting now and you know within the first minute what's going to happen just based on the vibe and things like that. But I know you're leaving for London soon. So I want to talk about
4 hours.
Yeah, so I don't want to keep you here too late, but
No,
tell me about the new album and then the new tour and where people can find and list everything. But tell me about the process of the new album and kind of where you were in a headspace in terms of your vibe of this album and what you put into it.
Yeah, I spent so the new album I just put out on this past Friday is called Whatever USA, and it's great, man. I spent a long time working on it, and it took a while to sort of figure out what I wanted the music exactly to sound like and what was like my true life experience at the time. You know, like a lot of it speaks to sort of the anxieties that I feel in general in music and the feeling of wanting to sort of get out of your bubble, get out of the small town that you grew up in looking for something more, and relationships. It's really just a lot of the stuff that has, in some ways, a focus towards like what my past was, and then brings it all the way to like kind of what my current day living situation is. But it was a longer process than most albums for me because I think I really wanted to make something that people would enjoy 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I focused on making songs that I thought stood the test of time and didn't just like rely on popular sounds and what's trendy and what's in right now. So hopefully I did that. So far, the reactions that I've gotten from fans is that like, if they've been a fan for a while, it makes them feel all that nostalgia that they did when they first found me. But at the same time, like, it feels like something new to them. And that's like basically the goal that I had. Like, the exact goal I had was exactly that. So if that's true, then I think I may have succeeded. But it's on Spotify. I put it up for free on my YouTube channel. If you don't have Spotify, it's on Apple or Google, basically everywhere. So if you want to give it a shot and you're bored this week and you're like, oh, let me listen to 25 minutes of music or even one song, it's there for you.
And are you youtube.com/Hoodie Allen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Okay. youtube.com/Hoodie Allen. And then I got to ask you, when you're putting the album together, do you ever like yeet any songs and be like, yo, this didn't make it? Did you have any songs that didn't make it, or is every song in it like this was it?
Oh, I yeeted so many songs. I skirted a bunch of songs.
Like, and then do they just go like into the vault to be like messed with later, or are they like?
Most of the times they go into the vault to never be reopened again. They go in the vault of like, hey, you remember this thing that I played on Instagram for 10 seconds that you said you really liked? Sorry, you're never gonna hear it ever again.
So I have to ask you this, because I want to wrap up, but like, would you ever just release stuff just to release it? Or you sound like, from everything I know about you and learning a lot during this interview, you like to have a lot of control, but you ever thought of just like releasing just songs randomly, or does it not work like that?
I definitely could. I think for me, the reason why I've been hesitant to do that sort of thing is if I don't put something out on an album while I'm working on it, there's got to be a reason. There's something about it that I don't love. Mm-hmm. And every time I do put something out, like, if I'm not excited about it, if I don't want to play it, how can I expect anyone else to be excited? How can I sell it to people? Like, how can I sell them on the idea of it? And I also like to treat every release like it's like a big event. Like, this is a big deal to me. This is a big piece of me. Like, I'm holding myself to a high standard in hopes that you will support it and retweet it and share it and listen. And if I started sort of my impression of the quality control, if I started lowering the quality control for myself, I feel like over time, those same people, if they agree with me and they don't like that stuff as much, they're going to be a little less invested in me. And they're going to say like, yeah, every release you do doesn't matter. Maybe I don't have to check out everything. How do I then tell them, oh, this one's important, but this one isn't important? So that's kind of where I've not thrown out so many random, hey, this didn't make the album sort of songs.
Have you ever had a song that did really well that you're like, it wasn't my favorite song on the album, or I didn't think it was going to do that well?
Yeah, always. There's always one on every album where I was like, should I put it on? And then someone's like, yeah, stop second guessing it. And then it becomes like the most popular, or like the third most popular song, and like the one that people always want you to play live. And you're like, oh, I guess I'm glad that I put that on. So yeah, that's definitely normal.
Well, just to lob one at you, how do you know there's not a couple bangers in the vault then?
Nope, there probably is. There probably absolutely is. But I kind of look at it like this. If it becomes a hit and I don't even like it that much before it even becomes a hit, and then I have to like play it all the time and perform it, then my job is actually becoming work instead of something exciting.
I got you. Okay. All right. So Hoodie, you got a tour coming up as well. You're going to London. Tell us where are the stops in the tour, and how can people get into one of your shows?
You could buy a ticket. But no, I'm going to London. I'm playing Reading and Leeds Festival, and but the main tour I'm doing is in the States. It's 22 shows all across the U.S. And then you can get that at hoodieallen.com. I would say go there. Don't go to StubHub. Don't get ripped off and pay extra money. That's bad. But yeah, I'm going to be announcing a European tour later this year. That will happen in 2020, and probably some more U.S. dates as well, as long as this one doesn't flop. So buy tickets, people.
Hoodie Allen confirmed coming to Detroit. You're going to have at least a large handful of people coming in Detroit. I'm going to buy a bunch of tickets for that one. I can't let you go though. Give me the 30-second rundown of, because the way we connected, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this, is probably twofold. But one, like, you showed up in the YouTube comments of a football series. So I want to know, what's your gaming background and what do you play, and what did you grow up playing, or what did you start playing?
The earliest game I can remember playing is Crash Bandicoot for PlayStation.
Okay.
But or like Roller Coaster Tycoon or Backyard Baseball.
Okay.
Oh my God, on the PC. But yeah, no, I would say I'm a casual gamer, and I definitely enjoy the community in general. Like, a lot of my music first popped off on YouTube, being used in like montage videos for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So like, there's this whole generation of kids that were like 12 years old 7 years ago, who for them, they know me because of like kill shot montages, which is so silly and so random. But it just goes to say like, hey, the way you can market music is so, you never know. Like, it's so weird. But yeah, I would say my background is that it's just like someone who's always been interested in games, sports games, stuff like that. I'm not really like particularly good at anything. I just enjoy watching on Twitch. And how I came in contact with you, I don't know if you want to continue that conversation or let me interject there.
You could take the reins with it, but because the podcast is focused on the guest, and it's never, so if you want to take the reins there, you can. But before you do that, what's your thoughts on getting your music on Twitch? And if someone's watching this or listening to this, they're like, hey, I want to play some of Hoodie's music during my live stream, what would they need to do that?
Nothing, because I own all the music, so you can use it. Consider this the blanket license to use it. But if you want to get some sort of written permission, hit me up on Twitter, and I will write it back to you that give you like the permission you need. But yeah, go for it.
And for anyone that does use it on Twitch or YouTube, what's a great way to show love back to you for opening the vault and the catalog of music to you?
simply including it somewhere where if other people are wondering what it is, that they can go find it easily, whether that means like the description or shouting it out. I don't know, just the typical things.
Okay.
I think as artists, we're in like a day and age where it's like, yes, please use my stuff, like get it to your audience. It's not about monetizing every single moment. It's about awareness. And like, it's so hard to get people to try out your music. You might as well be as open-minded to anything as possible. Make it easy for people. So I think it's just, be cool and other people will be cool back to you.
Got it. And when you're on the road, are you playing anything? You have a Switch? Do you bring anything in the bus? Are you playing anything at all? Any games loaded in right now that you're dialed into?
I've always wanted to set up like I was supposed to set up like my Twitch stream like months and months ago, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I thought play Fortnite, but I'm so trash at it. So I don't really know. I might just steal your thunder and start an NCAA series since you've totally abandoned us.
All right, Hoodie, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm excited for you. Check out the album. I'm gonna listen to it on my way home, and you'll see me at the Detroit stop for sure. I will be there, man. And anything we can ever do to help out, man. And what's the best way for people that want to reach out to you? Let me end with this, because I feel like just like you always provide value. You're talking to a young Hoodie right now out there in 2019. They're like, hey, I want to get on in music. What's your one single best piece of advice? As if they didn't pull out 100 nuggets from everything you've given. But if you could direct yourself or someone like you right now just starting, what would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to legitimately take off all the pressure that they have associated with making it, thinking about what the music industry is, all of that stuff, put it aside, and just make music, keep making music until you are sure that it's something that's worth sharing. It's totally okay to make something and not share it and keep it for yourself and use it as a point of growth. Everything we make doesn't have to be put out to the world. So just work on yourself until you get to that place where you're so confident in yourself that you then can start to think about, what does marketing look like? Don't worry about opening up for someone's tour or paying for a feature. Just be happy as a creative person, and the fact that you're able to make something that's so cool that you started making nothing and then you can make a song at the end of the day, that's such a cool thing. Be proud of yourself, and the other chips will fall as you get closer to it. The universe has a way of indicating, giving you those small windows of opportunity where you can pounce on them if you just have your eyes open to it. And I would also say, I can't wait to meet you, Dan, and it's a long time coming. We've had a bunch of good chats, and that even as upbeat and excited as I am in this conversation, that all the music stuff has its up and downs, and there's times of like mental anguish and self-doubt and all this sort of stuff. So you've been a good friend, and I think everyone out there should subscribe to his Twitch, and that's it.
All right, Hoodie, man. We'll catch up when you get back from London, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. We're rooting for you, and excited for everyone to check out the new album, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, bro. This was surreal. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Later. Yo, everyone, be sure to check out Hoodie Allen. Google him. Spotify, YouTube, iTunes. It was a pleasure. I wanted to bring him on. Number one, because we're friends. Number two, we didn't get into how we met or anything like that, but it's just totally different. Like, here's a dude who's talented and works his face off to get to where he is. And I think whether it's someone like Hafu, who worked her face off, it's just, or Hoodie Allen, he's been at the game for 10 plus years and he's doing it. And it's not luck. And so when people come on and share their stories and everything he's had to do to get to this point, I always think you learn from it and you take away from it. And I like bringing, Hoodie's a rare gem, man. You just don't see people like that all the time. And he talked about it. And I didn't want to gas him up or anything like that. But, he talks about things being taken away like that. And we talk about stuff like that privately. But I just don't see someone like Hoodie going away like that, because it's a long-term thing. It's not a monetary thing. It's not a transactional thing. If you heard it in the interviews, it's one by one. Like it's a long process, but he's focused on doing things for his right reasons, and I think it's reflected in his community, and and things of that nature. But be sure to check out the album. I'm gonna put it on now. And it just came out 2 days ago, I believe. But it's cool too. It's like you don't have to pay for it if you don't want. You can go to YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify. That's crazy to me. The thing that I learned, like 1 million plays, like $4,000 is a lot of money, but 1 million plays, that's a lot. That's a lot of listening to a song. And it seems like, I don't know. It just, I mean, he even said the equivalent to that back in the day on iTunes was 75 grand. So it's like, I don't know what's going on with Spotify. Like, but the thing is, you can't change it, right? And you didn't hear him complain once. You didn't hear him making excuses. Like, that's the environment that he operates in. And who knows how much it costs him to produce the album and things of that nature. But nonetheless, super excited that he came on. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. And it's a good one.